My name is Jhon, and welcome to my channel Plane Crashed, where we uncover the truth behind aviation's most haunting mysteries. Today, we revisit one of the most chilling disappearances in modern history, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. In 2014, a Boeing 777 carrying 239 souls vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of confusion, heartbreak, and countless unanswered questions. For nearly a decade, the world has been searching for the truth, but new evidence and investigations may finally shed light on what really happened that night. This isn't just a story about a missing plane. It's about the search for closure, truth, and justice. It was a quiet night over the South China Sea, March 8, 2014, when Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 lifted off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, bound for Beijing. The Boeing 777-200ER was one of the safest and most trusted aircraft in the skies, and for the 239 people on board, it was supposed to be just another routine flight. The passengers included families, business travelers, and crew who had done this route countless times before. At 12:41 a.m., the aircraft rolled down the runway and soared into the night sky, its engines humming steadily, its navigation lights cutting through the darkness. For the first 40 minutes, everything was calm. Air traffic control received standard communications. The flight climbed smoothly to its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. But at 1:19 a.m., as MH370 approached the boundary between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah made his final known radio transmission. "Good night, Malaysian 370. It was a simple handoff message, the kind pilots make thousands of times a day. Yet, within minutes of that calm farewell, the plane vanished from radar. The transponder, an electronic beacon that identifies an aircraft, was switched off, cutting communication with civilian radar systems. Military radar, however, later revealed something strange. Instead of continuing on its route to Beijing, the aircraft had turned sharply left, back across the Malay Peninsula. It flew over Penang Island, then out across the Andaman Sea. This wasn't a random drift. It was a deliberate, controlled maneuver. Someone in the cockpit had changed the plane's direction. For hours, MH370 continued flying undetected across some of the most remote stretches of ocean on Earth. Satellite data would later show a pattern of handshakes, automatic pings, sent between the aircraft and an orbiting satellite operated by Inmarsat. These handshakes became the key to unlocking the mystery of MH370's final flight path. Analysts determined the aircraft had turned south into the vast emptiness of the Indian Ocean, flying on autopilot until fuel exhaustion brought it down somewhere along what became known as the Seventh Arc. But in the hours immediately following its disappearance, confusion reigned. Air traffic controllers believed it had entered Vietnamese airspace. Vietnam thought it was still under Malaysian control. When MH370 failed to report in, no one acted immediately. It wasn't until 5:30 a.m., nearly 4 hours after contact was lost, that an official search and rescue alert was triggered. Families of passengers waited anxiously at Beijing Capital Airport, watching as the arrival board turned from on time to delayed, and eventually to missing. The world awoke to headlines that would define a generation. A modern jetliner had simply disappeared. Over the following days, the search spanned thousands of miles. Dozens of aircraft and ships from multiple nations scoured the South China Sea, then the Malacca Strait, then the Indian Ocean. Each day brought hope, rumors, and heartbreak. Early reports claimed debris had been spotted. Each time they turned out to be false alarms. Investigators tried to reconstruct the plane's final hours, piecing together radar blips, satellite data, and communications logs. They learned that after the transponder was turned off, the aircraft's ACARS system, the Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System, had also stopped transmitting. It was as if someone knew exactly which systems to disable to avoid detection. But the autopilot and satellite handshake system had not been shut down. That oversight became the only clue left behind in the digital void. As analysis deepened, experts mapped out possible flight paths based on the timing and frequency of the satellite handshakes. Each ping represented a distance between the aircraft and the satellite, forming an arc on the surface of the Earth. By analyzing the Doppler shift, the change in frequency caused by the plane's motion, Inmarsat engineers deduced that MH370 had turned south and continued flying for more than 6 hours after its last voice contact. That meant the plane could not have crashed near Vietnam or Thailand. It was far out in the southern Indian Ocean, one of the most isolated places on Earth. But the ocean is vast, and without exact coordinates, the search was like looking for a needle in a haystack the size of a continent. Meanwhile, the human stories added unbearable weight to the technical mystery. Families in China, Malaysia, and Australia waited for answers that never came. Every theory, hijacking, pilot suicide, mechanical failure, brought fresh waves of grief and speculation. Authorities faced mounting pressure. In the early days, Malaysia's response was criticized for confusion and delay. Conflicting statements added to the chaos. At one point, officials claimed the plane had turned back. Later, they said it might have gone north toward Kazakhstan. Eventually, they admitted it had likely ended in the southern Indian Ocean. Each shift in the narrative eroded public trust. In April 2014, the search intensified. The Australian-led Joint Agency Coordination Centre, JACC, began scouring the ocean floor west of Perth. Pings believed to be from the plane's black boxes were detected, sparking hope that the wreckage would soon be found. But the signals faded and no debris appeared. The batteries in the flight recorder's locator beacons eventually died, plunging the investigation into silence once again. Then, in 2015, more than a year after the disappearance, a piece of wreckage washed ashore on Réunion Island off the east coast of Africa. It was part of a Boeing 777 wing, a flaperon, and it was confirmed to belong to MH370. Over the following months, more fragments were discovered along the coastlines of Madagascar, Mozambique, and Tanzania, carried by the powerful currents of the Indian Ocean. These discoveries confirmed that the plane had indeed crashed into the southern Indian Ocean, but the main wreckage, its fuselage, engines, and black boxes, remained lost. The world wanted to know what had caused the plane to turn back, to fly for hours off course, and to vanish so completely. Theories multiplied. Some experts believed the captain, Zahari Ahmad Shah, may have deliberately diverted the flight in an act of suicide, citing a route found on his home flight simulator that mirrored the path MH370 eventually took. Others argued it could have been a sudden decompression, a cockpit fire, or a catastrophic system failure that left the crew unconscious while the plane continued on autopilot until it ran out of fuel. But none of these theories could explain every detail. If the aircraft suffered a major failure, why were communication systems intentionally shut down? If it was a hijacking, who was in control for so many hours, and why was there no claim of responsibility? If it was pilot suicide, why choose such a mysterious route instead of a direct descent? The lack of physical evidence meant no theory could be proven, only debated. As months turned into years, the search became the most expensive in aviation history. Crews mapped over 120,000 square kilometers of seabed, discovering underwater mountains and shipwrecks, but not MH370. The ocean held its secrets tightly. Then in 2018, after 4 years and no success, the official search was suspended. Families were devastated. For them, the disappearance wasn't just a tragedy, it was an open wound that refused to heal. They demanded answers, transparency, and continued investigation. Independent researchers and journalists continued their own searches, using new satellite imagery, ocean drift models, and advanced sonar data. The case became a global obsession. Documentaries, books, and online communities dissected every detail, every inconsistency, every whisper of new evidence. Yet the deeper people looked, the more complex the mystery seemed to become. Over time, a haunting realization set in. In an age of GPS, satellites, and real-time tracking, a massive passenger jet had disappeared in plain sight, and the world's best technology still couldn't find it. It was as if the ocean had swallowed it whole, but the story of that night remains deeply human. Inside the cockpit, two experienced pilots guided a trusted aircraft into the dark sky. In the cabin, 227 passengers settled in for a 6-hour flight, unaware that it would be their last. Somewhere over the sea, in the quiet between radio calls, something happened that changed everything. A switch flipped, a system went silent, a course was altered. The final hours of MH370 were a mix of precision and mystery, deliberate control followed by drifting isolation. When fuel finally ran out, the engines flamed out one after another, and the plane began its final descent into the cold waters below. There were no Mayday calls, no distress signals, no radar trace of the end, only silence. That silence still echoes today, haunting families and investigators alike. Because MH370 was not just a flight that vanished, it was a symbol of how even in our hyper-connected world there are still places and moments beyond our reach. The night of its disappearance remains one of the darkest in aviation history, not just because of what was lost, but because of how. Little we truly know about what happened in those final moments. The search for truth continues, driven by the belief that every mystery leaves a trace, and one day, even the Indian Ocean may give up its secrets. As years passed since that haunting night in 2014, the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 evolved from a breaking news story into one of the greatest aviation mysteries of all time. A riddle that refused to fade even after billions of dollars were spent, and countless hours were devoted to uncovering the truth. The world demanded answers, and while official searches ended, the investigation didn't. In fact, it only transformed, gaining new life as technology advanced and independent experts, journalists, and governments began uncovering fresh details that could finally explain what really happened. The key to this renewed focus lay not in the skies but deep within the oceans, inside servers, satellites, and fragments of evidence scattered across distant shores. The story of MH370's new investigation is one of persistence, data, and the relentless human will to find truth even when hope seems lost. New clues began surfacing when private researchers like the Ocean Infinity team, armed with advanced autonomous underwater vehicles, joined the hunt. These unmanned submarines could map the seabed with precision, covering vast areas more efficiently than ever before. In 2018, Ocean Infinity took on the challenge independently, launching a high-tech search mission using a fleet of underwater drones. For months, they combed through the remote southern Indian Ocean, far beyond the previous search zones. Despite their advanced sonar equipment and near-constant operation, no definitive wreckage was found. Yet their data revealed something critical. Parts of the ocean floor, previously thought to be flat and featureless, were actually mountainous, filled with ridges and canyons deep enough to swallow an entire aircraft. This made one thing clear. If MH370 was down there, it might simply be resting in terrain too treacherous or too deep for existing technology to reach. But the technological race to solve the mystery didn't end underwater. Advances in satellite analysis brought new insights to the surface. A decade earlier, the Inmarsat data had been the only breadcrumb trail left behind. Today, researchers re-examined that same data using refined algorithms, AI-assisted modeling, and simulation software capable of recreating the aircraft's behavior with stunning accuracy. They discovered subtle variations in the satellite handshakes, suggesting changes in speed, altitude, and direction, far more nuanced than the initial analysis could detect. These small shifts hinted at human control, perhaps a pilot guiding the plane southward until fuel exhaustion. Some analysts, using these advanced models, pinpointed potential crash zones just north of the previously searched area, suggesting the aircraft might have glided farther after losing power, rather than plummeting immediately. This idea was reinforced by simulations from Boeing engineers, who demonstrated that a controlled glide could carry the aircraft an additional 100 to 200 kilometers beyond the seventh arc. If true, it meant MH370's resting place might lie just beyond the edge of where searchers had stopped looking. Meanwhile, new evidence was emerging from the most unexpected places, the ocean's currents and coastlines thousands of miles away. Oceanographers studying debris drift patterns began to refine their models, using data from floating buoys and satellite-tracked drifters. By analyzing how ocean currents carried debris like the flaperon to Réunion Island, scientists could reverse engineer where that debris had likely originated. The results pointed consistently to a small region of the Indian Ocean, west of Australia, narrowing the search area dramatically. This wasn't speculation. It was mathematics, physics, and ocean science combining to paint a clearer picture of MH370's final journey. At the same time, forensic examination of the recovered debris brought fascinating details to light. Experts found barnacles and marine organisms attached to the flaperon and other fragments. These tiny creatures became living witnesses, their growth patterns revealing how long the debris had been in the water, and even what temperatures and conditions they had experienced. By comparing these biological clues with ocean temperature data, scientists could estimate where the wreckage had floated from. The deeper the study went, the more the pieces began to align. MH370 had almost certainly gone down in the southern Indian Ocean, near the seventh arc, but perhaps farther north and deeper than previously imagined. But while science brought clarity, controversy continued to swirl around the human element. One of the most debated topics in the new wave of investigation was pilot intent. Flight simulators, recovered from Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah's home, contained a route eerily similar to MH370's final flight path. This fueled theories of a deliberate act. Some experts argued that the intricate series of maneuvers, the transponder shutdown, the altitude changes, the navigation back across Malaysia, all indicated human intervention. However, new analyses offered alternative perspectives. Some flight data experts proposed that certain movements, once thought deliberate, could be the result of the aircraft's automated systems reacting to failures or depressurization. In one scenario, a sudden drop in oxygen could have rendered both pilots unconscious, leaving the plane on autopilot until fuel exhaustion. Others believed a fire or electrical fault might have knocked out communication systems while still allowing the plane to fly. These weren't just guesses. Modern simulators recreated each possibility, factoring in engine performance, fuel burn, and flight dynamics, testing what was physically possible. Even after years of debate, none of the scenarios could be fully ruled out. In 2022, attention shifted again when the independent researcher Richard Godfrey used a technology known as Weak Signal Propagation Reporter, WSPR, data to track MH370's potential route. WSPR is a global network of radio signals used by amateur radio operators that can record minute disruptions caused by aircraft flying overhead. Godfrey's analysis suggested a detailed flight path southward over the Indian Ocean that matched Inmarsat's satellite data almost perfectly. His findings reignited interest and pointed to a new search zone, one that Ocean Infinity announced plans to revisit using even more advanced submersible drones capable of exploring greater depths. As this technology improves, hopes rise that the wreckage might finally be located. Governments have also revisited their roles in the case. The Malaysian government, after years of silence, hinted that if credible new evidence emerged, they would authorize another search. Meanwhile, Australia's Transport Safety Bureau remains open to collaboration, awaiting a data-backed proposal strong enough to justify relaunching operations. It's a cautious optimism, rooted in scientific rigor, but fueled by compassion for the families who have endured unimaginable loss. New investigations have also focused on communication anomalies in the final minutes of MH370's known existence. Analysts examining radar data noted brief altitude changes, sharp climbs and descents that could suggest either turbulence, human control, or system malfunctions. Enhanced computer simulations have shown that the plane's erratic movements might have been linked to an autopilot issue or to manual inputs attempting to stabilize the aircraft. These discoveries keep reshaping how investigators understand those final moments, showing that even after a decade, data still has more to reveal. The emotional aspect of this investigation cannot be separated from the science. Families, still desperate for closure, have become researchers in their own right. Many have turned to technology, tracking debris reports online, funding independent sonar surveys, and even building digital archives of every piece of evidence ever found. Their determination has kept the story alive long after media attention waned. Each time a new theory arises, whether from scientists, journalists, or aviation experts, it reignites that fragile flame of hope that the truth will finally emerge. The mystery of MH370 also forced the aviation industry to change. Airlines and regulators have since implemented new global tracking standards, ensuring that aircraft can no longer vanish without trace. Systems like Global Aeronautical Distress and Safety System, GADSS, and improved satellite-based tracking now provide near-continuous global coverage. Flight recorders in the future may even stream critical data in real time, making another MH370 scenario nearly impossible. In a way, the loss led to evolution, a painful but vital transformation that might save countless lives in the years to come. Still, for all the progress, MH370 remains elusive. The ocean floor, with its crushing pressure and complex geography, continues to conceal its secrets. Yet those involved in the renewed search believe that technology is finally catching up to the challenge. Advanced sonar, AI-driven image recognition, and ultra-deep autonomous vehicles can now explore depths once unreachable. Every new generation of machines brings the possibility that the next scan could reveal the outline of a fuselage, a wing, or a telltale fragment of metal that will confirm what the world has been searching for since 2014. And beyond the hardware, a more profound question lingers. What does solving MH370 truly mean? For investigators, it's the pursuit of knowledge, of completing an unfinished story. For the families, it's peace, a chance to bring their loved ones home, to replace endless uncertainty with truth, however painful it may be. For humanity as a whole, it's a reminder of both our technological power and our limitations. We can send rovers to Mars, map distant galaxies, and communicate across the planet in seconds, yet the vastness of Earth's own oceans can still hide a secret from us. As we stand on the threshold of new exploration, armed with better tools, better data, and a decade of hard-earned experience, the search for MH370 continues not just as an investigation, but as a mission of collective endurance. Because every clue, every piece of data, every fragment of debris brings us closer to the final answer. And when that answer finally emerges from the deep, it won't just solve a mystery. It will close a chapter of grief, restore faith in the power of human inquiry, and remind us that even in the darkest corners of the unknown, truth is never truly lost. It's only waiting to be found. In the end, The mystery of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 stands as both a tragedy and a testament to the unyielding human spirit. For over a decade, the world has searched not just for a missing plane, but for meaning, proof that even in loss, we can find answers. Each wave that crashes over the Indian Ocean carries whispers of the 239 souls who vanished that night, reminding us that behind every data point and every theory lies human lives, stories and dreams that were never meant to end this way. The investigation may still continue, but what endures above all is our determination to seek the truth, to bring light to the deepest depths, to ensure they are never forgotten, and to make sure that what happened to MH370 never happens again.